Grant Williams grabbed a couple of glasses of wine and went on to Duncan Robinson's podcast and said a lot of things, maybe some things that were a little spicy. And we're going to talk about them right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. Thank you so much for making this show part of your daily routine. I'm here for you Monday through Friday with a fresh, free podcast that you can get directly to your device when you subscribe. You could also watch the show on YouTube. However you want to do it, I do appreciate you consuming this podcast on a daily basis. I'm John Karalis. I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. I've written a book called The Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars. And I was one of the media voters for the Celtics 75th anniversary team. Today, we're doing the late July podcast thing where we're talking about what happened on another podcast. This time, Grant Williams on how many players have podcasts, by the way? He was on Duncan Robinson's podcast called The Long Shot, which, of course, his podcast is called The Long Shot. And it's something that Tom Westerholm can appreciate because he's a big fan of taking shots from a long ways away. Tom, I didn't realize this is what you look like.
Hey, man, it's good to see you. It's good to good to meet you in person finally.
Yeah, no, this is great. Tom Westerholm, a person we can now see clearly.
Yeah, man.
And we all heard what you were saying. It was just a little bit of a process. So.
Yes.
Tom, feeling good, looking good. How everything going okay in your world?
Everything's good, man. I'm ready to talk about my doppelganger. My basketball doppelganger. Talking to drunk Grant Williams.
Yeah, Grant was very clearly more forthcoming. It seemed like with his answers. Look, first of all, let me start with this. Let's start with this. The Celtics did add an assistant coach. And when we were joking around, when Will Hardy took the job in Utah, I said, yeah, everybody made the same joke. Well, Ime's going to go back to Portland and find himself an assistant coach. And he did exactly that.
Yes, he certainly did.
Mike Moser, a Portland, Oregon native, and who was on the Oregon women's basketball team, is now joining the Celtics staff. So the Boston Trailblazers are ready to rock for the upcoming season.
I like to imagine Ime. He's assembling his coaching staff, and he's like, all right, here's the thing. Will Hardy will come here, and I know I should bring him in. Richmond, Virginia, as the place where he was born, just makes me sick. But I guess we got to bring this guy in, and then bringing him in. And now he can finally rectify that mistake of allowing Richmond, Virginia into the room.
So
what I'm trying to say is Joe Mazzulla better watch himself because
that's right. You better get that job quick. So go back and
out of here, buddy.
And that's it. So hey, great time to be if you're from Portland and you're into basketball.
Oh man,
just start looking at Boston properties. Just start looking at the rent. Just start looking around for a place to live because there's a very good chance that Ime Udoka wants to hire.
Maybe click that little box that signals to prospective employees on LinkedIn that you're willing to willing to listen if Boston wanted to come calling. If somebody in Boston was looking for a worker from Portland, you're around.
Yeah, just let them know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna forge. If I forge some documentation, maybe you think I could be like that guy, or like the fake Klay Thompson guy. I kind of look the part. If I just show up at the practice facility wearing Oregon Ducks gear and green and white and yellow sneakers, I just throw a hood on. How far do you think I can go before Ime hires me on the spot without seeing who I am.
Well, I do think Ime would think it was kind of funny. I feel like he kind of gets it. But I mean, yeah, I thought
we should all do that. Everybody,
the thing is, you'd get banned for life. Is what we learned from the Warriors guys.
Yeah,
so.
That's true. That's true. I think it'd be funny if on media day all of the assembled media showed up in like Oregon t-shirts or something.
I do think that would be solid. Yeah.
That'd be funny. All right. Grant Williams grabbed a couple of glasses of wine and hopped on.
Literally two of them,
which CJ McCollum bought and ordered. CJ McCollum, noted wine enthusiast. Wine, the official beverage of the NBA. Lots of wine connoisseurs in the NBA. You see Instagram photos, Instagram videos. LeBron always with the wine. It's very classy. It's a very classy drink.
It's very classy. I feel like guys are kind of tricking themselves into doing the thing that everybody does where they're like, oh, it's wine. It's like, it's kind of good for me. And it's like, well, I mean, I guess, but like presumably during the off season, you're drinking enough. I mean, Grant is double fisting it. Like that kind of counteracts the health benefits, I think.
Yeah. I mean, wine is good for you. As a Greek,
sure.
I can attest to that. Greek,
sure.
We're very big into the wine. But drinking 3,000 calories worth of it is probably going to be counterproductive after a while. So,
which of course is fine. These guys are in like peak physical shape, and he's
sure. No, just
it is. However, I agree with you that it is the drink of choice of the NBA.
It is. I can picture like Grant coming in with like purple stained teeth from having too much, and just like a little paunch, and just like, hey, everybody. Ready the basketball? Let's just go.
You know what? The Warriors, they weren't better than us.
They weren't better than us.
Which is actually what he said.
Which is literally what he said. He starts off, and the part that I think I want to talk about the most is that whole notion, which I understand, but as a basketball guy, former player kind of guy, I've always been taught if you were the better team, you would have won. So going out there now, after all of this time, and saying, I still believe we were the better team. No, you weren't. Grant. No, you weren't. I mean, I know what you're trying to say, but no, you were not. Because if you were, you would have won. That's right. The sad reality of this. Did they have more talent across the board? I mean, I was saying for a while that they had, I thought they were better. And even after 3 games, I said, here it is. The Celtics are the better team. They should win this series. But, I mean, let's just start there. They were not.
Agreed. I think this kind of goes back to something that drives me nuts about NBA discourse because, like, you'll get, like, I don't know, Warriors fans from 2019 who are like, hey, like, the Raptors only won that because, our guys were hurt. And, you'll get these arguments where somebody will say like, well, my team was better, but, like they won because of circumstances. And it's like, the thing is that like every series is a result of circumstances, yes, maybe you had more talent on your roster, but were they available? Because if not, you were not the better team. And it's just like, that's, I think this one's even more simple than that, right? Because this one isn't about injuries. This is about the Celtics weren't disciplined. So the Celtics weren't a better team. Like, I'm sorry. Like, sure, if you hadn't turned the ball over 16 times per game in the finals, yeah, you maybe you would have been the better team. But you did, so you weren't. Like, I really think it's that simple. It's like you were not the better team, as proven by 6 basketball games.
Right. 6 games that showed flat out, you were not better. And that discipline stuff, I don't know about you. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way because we've been talking about this stuff for a long time with these guys. And I know they're still young, and I know that sometimes you have to learn your lessons the hard way, but for Grant to say that they weren't, that the Warriors were the more disciplined team. Okay, fine. Let me just start with that. Fine that they were the more disciplined team. because they have been there. They've done that. They knew how to ride out certain circumstances where the Celtics sort of panicked in certain circumstances. But the whole immaturity, we kind of messed around a little too much with the Milwaukee series, and then we messed around a little too much with the Miami series. I guess why that rubs me the wrong way is you just saw how much it cost you 2 series ago. Okay, you did it again, and you got away with it by like the slimmest of margins. Like Jimmy Butler was just too tired to hit that last shot. And I still believe that they were tired, and I think the fact that they were out of gas kind of when you're out of gas, you get sloppy. Like, for example, I'm painting in a house right now, and when I'm like at the end of the day and I'm tired, that's when I make a mistake and I hit a doorknob with the roller, and I'm like scrape the ceiling with the roller. I'm like, God damn it. I'm not disciplined enough because I'm too tired. I'm not focused. But at some point, it feels like, shouldn't you have like learned this lesson by now? It was very off-putting the way he said it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you didn't learn it in the Bucks series and you didn't learn it in the Heat series, like, yeah,
I guess like you're never going to learn it, right?
I mean, that's, like, I mean, if you didn't learn it from 7 games against Giannis and like you said, like that Jimmy Butler thing that could have been the season right there, and it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's like a never going to learn thing, but it does seem like, if your argument is that you were undisciplined and that's the reason that you lost, and there were precursors of that, well, the precursors probably should have told you about discipline. I also think like discipline feels like a bit of an excuse to me, like kind of like talking around the actual problem, which was that Steph Curry broke their defense, and Steph Curry breaks defenses. Like, yeah, it's what he does, and that kind of comes back to I don't think that the Celtics were the better team, like Grant does, but that's yeah. I mean, I just think it's that simple, and I think, look, I'm sure we're gonna get into this too. It's totally normal for an NBA player to be like a little bit overconfident in themselves, in their team, in their potential for success. All of that is completely normal and fine. I just happen to disagree with Grant here. I don't think that the Celtics were the better team. Also, I wanted to say, in terms of being undisciplined and doing housework, little graphic spoiler for anybody on YouTube. But yeah, man.
Oh no.
You don't want to be undisciplined when you're hammering. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big swing and a miss there.
It was.
Wow. All right. Well, we got 2 things there. We got Tom's like bloody stump of a finger and inadvertently flipping off the camera, which maybe I'll make that the thumbnail.
Just Tommy Heinsohn.
Very Tommy. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So on that note, we'll come back. We'll use this segment. We'll use this to segue into Built Bar. That's not even a segue at all, because Built Bar is much better than whatever Tom just showed us. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar on the market. And now they've turned their coconut brownie chunk Built Bar into the coconut brownie chunk marshmallow puff. This is crazy. It's like eating this marshmallow that's covered in chocolate, but it's low calorie, low sugar, high protein, and very, very delicious. Coconut brownie chunk Built puffs. It's like a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. They're only here for a limited time, so go to built.com now. Make sure you don't miss out on coconut brownie chunk puffs. They're made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently. Tons of health benefits. You can eat something that tastes good and is good for you. And the best part, besides just how good they taste, is the promo code LOCK15, because you can use it every single time. You want to try the coconut brownie? I keep getting tripped up because I'm drooling over how good these are. Coconut brownie chunk puffs, if you want to try those. And then in 2 weeks, when they come out with something better, or it's something different, or something you think is a little bit better, you can go to built.com and use the promo code LOCK15 every single time. It gets you 15% off your order. LOCK15, 15% off at built.com. This week on the Locked On NFL channel, they started out their new series, Which NFL Stars Move the Betting Lines the Most. This week, Locked On started giving you the 50 most valuable players in the NFL from odds makers at BetOnline. It started on July 18th, which was Monday. You can go to Locked On NFL wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Let's get back to this Grant Williams conversation. What else, Tom, because you came to me and said, I got Grant Williams takes. What was your biggest takeaway from this whole thing?
Well, my biggest takeaway, I think it was really interesting, again, kind of an insight into how, how some of these like interviews work, right? Because it was pretty clear that they, at the start of the podcast, they basically say like, man, Grant talked pretty spicy in this podcast. And, it was very interesting because I it's fascinating with the new media, right? With Duncan Robinson is doing a podcast, like Draymond Green has these guys on all the time. They get NBA guests because they are NBA players. Like these are their friends. Yeah. And it's I think one of the things that is fascinating to me, and this is a little bit navel gazing, I apologize if people aren't interested. We can get back to actual stuff later, but it's very interesting to me, the difference where like you're interviewing your friends and you realize like this is going to kind of make some headlines. Like Grant Williams was going to make some headlines with his stuff saying that the Celtics were better. And you can kind of tell that like the Duncan Robinson pod was like, sorry, Grant. I mean, I don't hope this doesn't get you in trouble. And like that was kind of the vibe I got from the beginning of that pod. It was just like, yeah, he talked kind of spicy on here, and I don't know, we're going to put it out there.
Yeah. It's so funny. This is the thing. Like we've talked about this, and like we can make this as part of the discussion too, because a lot of these players are creating their own podcasts, partly because they want to control their own message, partly because they maybe they want a little extra money. I don't know. Whatever. These outlets come to them and say, hey, we want another player.
Duncan Robinson is hard up. I mean, that dude's getting paid.
Right. So you get a lot of these. I've lost track. Just like I've lost track of like there's a big genre of celebrities interviewing celebrities and these comedy podcasts. Everybody within the sphere is interviewing each other within their same sphere. So it's just interesting to see these players kind of put this out there. And like you said, Duncan Robinson and Grant Williams seem to be cool. And Grant's going to get some blowback because of the things that he said. And you're right. It is very clear that they started out the podcast by going, ooh, okay. So like that whole intro, he said all the, we're going to do it. We're going to show it. We're going to play it. Because I'm sure that means that they had the internal discussion of should we release this because Grant's going to get crap for this, and it's going to be because he appeared on this show, and I don't want to piss him off, but I've been in these production meetings exactly like this, like a million times through TV and all my whole career. That they're like, hey man, they said it. You interviewed them and they said it on the record. And like, they call back later and said, ooh, can you not, I feel like I didn't, like you said it. We asked the question, you said it. And now you got to deal with it.
And to be clear, there's absolutely no indication that like Grant called Duncan and was like, hey, could you edit this? Like it doesn't
right.
That should be noted. I mean, it's funny because like I've kind of, I think everybody's kind of experienced this to an extent, right? Like, so there was one time I was going to interview a guy, a Celtics player who said some really spicy stuff to me. And, I wasn't sure if it was supposed to be on the record. I mean, I had made it very clear to him, like, I'd put my recorder down and I pressed record, and like he was so casual, and I was like, we're recording this, like this is gonna be out there, like you're cool with this being news, right? And like, I mean, and the answer is yes, right? Like you put it out there, and it does great numbers, and then you're happy. But it's very interesting to me watching the new media kind of discover some of the like this is a little awkward of the old media. And it's look, and for what it's worth, I think from my perspective, as somebody who's, kind of a member of old media, if that's what you want to call it, I mean, I'm on a podcast right now, so it's a weird way to phrase it, but I write for an online publication. But, I was never an NBA player, obviously. There's clearly room for both, right? Like people like takes, people like, analysts like breaking down the game and people doing that. And people like, players talking to players can make for great content, right? Like it is fascinating to hear Grant Williams talking to Duncan Robinson about guys on the Celtics who trash talk. He's talking like, yeah, Marcus is talking the whole time. Yep. Jayson Tatum doesn't really say much, but his antics are like a thing. He's like, Jaylen Brown talks kind of under his breath, which is exactly how you think Jaylen Brown would talk trash, right?
Yeah,
like just
yeah.
Kind of like kind of muttering something to himself, like, it's exactly how you think. So, I mean, that kind of stuff is truly like great content. I think it's, and it makes for, it gives us stuff to talk about. It gives people, stuff to think about. But I mean, it's going to be a strange ecosystem over the next couple of years, I think, as kind of both parties, still put out good content and, kind of interact with each other a little bit.
We talked about this a little bit, I think, with the Draymond Green podcast. Like when you start to see it's unavoidable. This is why social media is what it is. You get this positive feedback and you get that little dopamine hit and you're like, ooh, this is nice. And when your podcast gets talked about, that's like, ooh. And so when Draymond's podcast gets talked about and when Duncan Robinson's podcast gets talked about, like I got a DM from their podcast feed saying, hey, just want to let you know, we got Grant Williams on the show. Like they are clearly marketing the show and saying, hey, everybody listen. So because the podcast outlets aren't doing this for nothing. They're not doing this for free. They want to make money off of it. They're thrilled that there's headlines. They're thrilled that we are doing a whole podcast talking about their podcast. This is exactly what they want. Right. But you end up becoming the thing that you hate. And that's going to be where they, you have to be careful. What's the difference between Grant Williams saying what he said there and saying it to me or to you in a one-on-one setting? And he might not have phrased it the same way. I can just tell the way he talked to Duncan Robinson was much calmer, and his words flowed. And when he talks to us, he has a lot of like filler words because he's trying to figure out how I'm supposed to talk to you guys, the media, versus how he's talking to Duncan Robinson. But in this setting, Duncan Robinson is the media.
Still the media.
He's the media.
Yep.
You didn't hear, but I went on a big rant yesterday on players. They don't understand, and fans, a lot of people don't understand what the media is, who the media is, what the difference between kinds of media. When you are talking into a microphone and another person is asking you questions, you're doing media. That's the end of the story. And that person on the other side is going to act like a lot of media, and they're going to say, whoa, that was a great quote. We're going to plug this out and just use that to promote the show. And that's how all media works. Yet the players will get on us for doing that, and now they're doing the things that they get on us for, and it's going to be a wild reaction to be like, oh my god, what? How did we get here? How did I start doing this? I'm fascinated by that whole thing. That whole dynamic is going to be super interesting.
It's going to be really interesting. It's because it's very similar to this phenomenon. Sometimes you'll get guys who they might have covered a player when they were younger. They have a great relationship with the player, and the player is very friendly with them and kind of trusts them, but they're still on media time, right? And this is another step even beyond that. These are their peers, their friends, the people that they play against, and it's going to be really interesting. That's again, it's very inside baseball. I don't know how much people care about that stuff, but the players kind of realizing that we do things for a reason, and that reason is the same reason they are doing it, and it makes money, right? This is how media makes money. Players kind of realizing how that works is it's going to be an experience for everybody, I think.
Yeah. Look, man, inside baseball, people love inside baseball. I don't know if this particular inside baseball is what people love, but I think it's relevant to people listening because what you do is you hear, hey, oh, here's this player or this former player, and they get the players that you want, and you know that those players let their guard down with these guys. They let their guard down, and the more they let their guard down with them, and the more that turns into headline after headline after headline after headline, they're going to stop letting their guard down with those guys too.
Right, 100%.
Yep. And here's the thing. Now this is where we get inside baseball. Here's the thing that those players, the former players who aren't trained in what they're doing, here's what they don't know how to do. They don't know how to, first of all, guide a person down a certain line of questioning to not get just, oh my God, he just said this, to get through it and to dig into, well, why do you think this? And sometimes you give a person an out to or somebody, you give the person context, the opportunity to provide context to the quote. You also, they aren't storytellers. They aren't the people who can say, all right, here's what a person said, and let's take the full context of here's this and here's that, and ask the questions that maybe add that, and then you can turn around and tell the story, the full story, and get, when a person says, well, what I meant by that is this. In a podcast setting, it's all just going to flow. But if you're going to write a story, you can have you can have the quote, but you can have the full context of it. And a lot of times that the context is what's lost. That opportunity is gone.
That's the thing that I think, the old media do kind of tend to add a little bit better is context. We're not gonna. I don't think we're gonna get the. We're not if you and I had Grant Williams on the pod, it just would not be the same conversation they had with Duncan Robinson. But if you want us to contextualize some things, hey man, it's kind of what we do. We're pretty good at that. So,
do you believe that the Warriors actually game planned, or I'm sorry, the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat actually spent a whole film session game planning for Grant Williams' defense?
So here's the thing. I actually do, because if you remember the halcyon days of the Eastern Conference Finals, right after Grant Williams shut down Kevin Durant and shut down Giannis, it was a whole different conversation about Grant Williams than kind of the one that happened after the finals. So yes, I actually do. Yeah, I do buy that, because the other thing was Grant was going to be the Bam stopper, which didn't end up really kind of materializing. I mean, he did well in spurts, but anyway. I actually do believe that, just because it was a different world in May of 2022.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, he had come off a couple of really good series. Boy, how different was it coming out of the Bucks series, where we were like, oh my God, what is the Grant Williams extension going to be?
Yeah, and
now the conversation is a lot different. I don't know, what will the Grant Williams extension be? At this point, does what he did in the finals take away from what he did, or is that just do the Celtics say, hey, look, we're everybody in the finals kind of sucked at some degree. We're just going to chalk that up, and we understand that the earlier rounds were the earlier rounds, and he'll get a fair chunk as it is.
Yeah, it's impossible to say. I did think it was interesting that he himself on the podcast was like, yeah, hopefully Brad calls me soon. Yeah, I bet you hope, man.
Oh, Brad, check your phone. You're like, is that no? That's not Brad. Was it Brad now? No. Did you hear my phone?
I swear I felt it buzzing. That's weird.
Yeah, that was me, not me. He's I think he's very, I don't know, anxious to sign the the extension. I don't know. It's very interesting because I mean he did come out and take a stance that's very not what normally you would take. Very much a hey Brad, I'm willing to kind of talk here, which is great. It's great for him. It just was interesting. I mean, I'm interested to see what the demand will be and what he'll get. What have you come around? Because I always get asked what my number would be for a Grant Williams extension. Have you kicked that number around yet?
It's interesting, right? Because you could make so to me, I could kind of see the case for close to Rob money, right? Because like Rob clearly like the superior prospect who took a huge discount based on his health. So if you wanted to say, if you wanted to say Rob money, I think that makes sense. Because look, Giannis isn't going anywhere. That dude's around for a while, and like maybe Grant Williams isn't. I mean, he's talking about himself on that podcast like he's like, the new Draymond Green. Maybe he's not the new Draymond Green, but he is a guy who can limit Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, like, and not just, not like young Giannis, because you can make the case that like, well, Horford, when he was doing it, Giannis was a little bit younger. Like Grant kind of does it now. That's pretty valuable on a team. I mean, it's kind of honestly, it's more valuable than having a Joel Embiid stopper at this point because the Bucks are like a real contender, and who knows what the Sixers are. So I think you could safely throw some money at him. Like I said, maybe the Rob money, but I haven't like done like a deep dive or anything like that yet.
It's funny that you say that because we haven't talked about this at all, and that's been my answer. My answer has been like I can get myself to Rob money, and I think that would be a comfortable place for me if I was like in the Brad Stevens position. It's been thrown out, like some bigger numbers have been thrown out, which I would say, okay, I can consider bigger numbers, but I think that would have to be incentive laden.
Yes, I would agree.
Numbers, like you would have to, okay, you want to get up to, 4 and 60. You got to hit some markers to get to that kind of money, which maybe
that 3-point percentage better be over 40 every year.
Oh yeah. If you shoot over 40% from three, then like maybe that's it. Maybe it's 40% to 41.5. You get an extra, million. 41.5 to 43.5. You get an extra, whatever. And for every month that you shoot over 40%, you get an extra certain amount. Because I think Grant has been, there's a little bit of streakiness to Grant's shooting. Like that's not at, an extreme, but he goes through stretches where all of a sudden it's like, wow, he's shooting 65%. Oh, then now he's missed 10 in a row. And so I can see something like that. Like, hey, if you want to be more consistent, then every month you shoot over 40%, here's an extra $100,000 or something like that. Like, can you?
Well, that would be real creative. I think you could go simpler though. I think you could just tell him like yeah, I mean, shoot, whatever you want it to be, 40.5% or whatever it is, like shoot that number from three, and then. Because, I mean, maybe he's never going to be, like, a completely consistent player. Maybe sometimes he's a little bit streaky. But, like, if he shoots 40%, you got a stretch where he was just lights out. And that was huge for your team, Or, and, you might get stretches where he's less lights out. And maybe they happen at a super inopportune time like the NBA Finals. But, hey, man, you'll always have the Eastern Conference semis.
You really want to get creative? You can say, all right, we'll take your 3-point shooting percentage and add 4 zeros to it, and we'll go that way. So
I like it.
0.3, you got $4.1 million. There's your bonus. And look, busting Grant a little bit here because I do think going back to the beginning, I do think the whole concept of we were the better team is. Like, I know what he's trying to say. He probably said it like the wrong way. And again, because they were never really allowed, like there was no follow-up to say, to contextualize it. So, but I understand what he was saying. But at the same time, like Grant had a really, really good season. And Grant, they don't get to the NBA finals without Grant Williams. I think that even though he said a couple of things, maybe he might want to take back or maybe say a little bit differently, it doesn't take away from the fact that the Celtics did shoot themselves in the foot, and Grant didn't have a great finals. And there's I think, as off-putting as some of the way he said those things was, I do think that it does set us up for a lot of the things that we've been saying. The Celtics learned some really, really hard lessons here. And they came out of that series feeling like total crap. And part of me hopes that they do take it the way Grant said, because I want them to sit there and be like, we were better and we screwed this up. So we have to go out there and make sure that we don't do that again. And that the Warriors' example of being the more disciplined team tells them, hey, as good as we thought we were, we got to be that disciplined. We can't be messing around like we were and thinking we're all that, which frankly was that's a consistent theme, I think, throughout the Tatum and Brown years. I think they have consistently thought, we're good here. And they've blown a lot of leads. That's why they've blown leads. That's why they collapse from time to time. And Grant even said it in the bubble. They didn't take Miami as seriously as they thought they should. And like this is like a consistent theme. I guess I'll throw this out there. If they didn't take Miami as seriously in the bubble, and this has been consistent, they didn't have the discipline to close out games prior to their turnaround. And then after the turnaround, they didn't have the discipline to close out series when they could, and they didn't have the discipline to close out the finals. I just sat here and said, hey, this should be a hard lesson that they should learn from. But can they learn from this? Because after all of these years, they've shown that this has been a problem, yet they haven't quite fixed it.
I think they can definitely learn from it. Honestly, I mean, I think, I think saying that they didn't learn from it, and that's like the big thing. I mean, it does. Rob Williams wasn't healthy. I'm not. And look, I mean, I'm not going back on what I said earlier. The Celtics were not the better team, but also like Rob Williams was not healthy. And I think that's part of it. I also think too, like, you lose in the finals, it hits a little different, right? Like, I'm sure, losing in the semifinals to the Heat, or losing it, in the Eastern Conference Finals to the Heat in 2020, I'm sure that hurt way worse than losing to the Nets in the first round last year, right? Like, it's just like it just hits different. And this year, they did overcome that Heat series. They did make it to the finals. They did have that nice moment on the court where they all took pictures, and there's going to be photos of them and Eastern Conference finals champion hats or whatever. And then there's going to still be that bad taste of losing to the Warriors. And I think that will probably stick with them a little bit, right? Like, it's, you lose in a finals game, it sucks. I mean, I assume I'm drawing from men's league experience. Like, so I don't know, man, it sucks to lose in a men's league final. I did it like 4 times, and every time it sucked. But, I do think that I think, we've seen a lot of examples of teams that have taken that and come back hungrier the next season and, come back better the next season. I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be the Celtics in this case.
I mean, I agree with you. That thought hit me like, wait a second.
It was a very familiar phrase.
Wait a second. We've heard this before.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. Maybe next time we do a podcast together, I'll have a glass of red wine and a glass of white wine, and we'll see where we go.
Let's see where it goes, man. It might get crazy.
I think what we have to do is have dinner with CJ McCollum.
That's it.
And and then podcast, because that's the only way to do this fairly. So
you get on the pod before and you're just like, listen, guys, I know like you guys think Tom's like okay. He got kind of spicy.
Tom said a lot of things about Portland.
And he said him on the record. I mean, he knew we were recording, so
gave him a chance to take it back, and he said, "No, as a matter of fact," and he doubled down on it.
Yeah. The other thing I had from the pod was that like the way people talk about Sam Hauser is like, I mean, the idea that, so it's funny because like they keep talking about him like he's this like insane shooter, and I don't doubt it for a second that he is, but then they'll say stuff like, well, but he can't shoot off movement. I'm like, okay. What are we doing here then?
Look, this dude is the best home run hitter I've ever seen. He can only hit it off a tee.
Or he can't hit it. He can't hit a fastball. But like if you throw, we'll strike him out 10 times out of 10 on a fastball. But that curve,
if you throw an easy pitch, he's got that thing. I mean, I get it. Like that we saw that in summer league with Hauser. Basically, like he had one pull up 3-pointer. In fact, I think it was the only one he attempted. Maybe he attempted a couple. He hasn't hit in the G League or with the Celtics. He hasn't had a pull up 3-pointer. Every single one of his 3-pointers in the G League and in Boston has been assisted. So he's always been a catch and shoot guy. But when it comes to catch and shoots, man, he can spray it, as they said.
He can spray it.
He can spray it. And look, whatever. That's fine. He's an awesome shooter.
I have this like 95% of me is like Sam Hauser is an excellent shooter who's going to do well next year. He shot 43.2%, on like 44 attempts last year. That's like, do you know how hard it is to make 43% of your threes when you're attempting like less than one a game? I mean, that's I guess he attempted 1.7, so not true, but it is hard to just kind of come in and like hit spot threes like that. Like that's crazy. And there is a part of me that's like, okay, I wonder how much of this is just the fact that like his form is so perfect. The rotation is so perfect. It snaps the net different. Like his threes are very,
it's a different shot. I've said this a million times. Shot. That shot, I've never seen a 3-pointer. I've never seen a 3-point shot like his. Now it's just different. It's almost like the anti-Curry. Because Curry shoots his kind of from the hip and like he pushes it instead. The Hauser 3, it almost is like the old double dribble basketball game. It almost leaves his hand. It feels like it leaves his hand like a tick too early, and it just floats up. It scrapes the banners when he shoots. I've never seen that before, but it works. You're right. It does snap the net differently, probably because it's got a faster downward velocity because it's coming from higher than any other shot you're going to see. And it's coming in at a different angle. It hits the rim different. It hits the net different. It's such a wild kind of shot. I'm endlessly fascinated by it, but there's no story behind it. Yeah. I asked him about the jump shot, and he's like, yeah, I just kind of always shot like that. And I'm like, no, tell me something. Because the shot to me, I don't know why. I will admit, I think I overdo it when it comes to Hauser's shot. Because I have just never seen a 3-pointer shot like that. And I can't wrap my head around it. I can't exactly I need like the fastest or the slowest motion, the highest like frame rate. Like I need to see exactly how it leaves his fingertips compared to other players because it's different.
Phantom Cam Sam.
Yeah, Phantom Sam.
Phantom Sam Hauser.
Phantom Sam.
There's something there.
That's where that's where I used to go get my hair cut. Phantom Sam's.
Oh, really?
All right. That was a terrible joke. That was a terrible joke. It was an old Fantastic Sam's joke. You never have it a Fantastic Sam's?
Huh?
Have you ever heard
I don't
of
know.
Fantastic Sam's?
No, I have no idea what that is.
Yeah. Oh well. I mean,
we're 0 for 2 here at the end.
Does Fantastic Sam's ever? It used to be a competitor of Supercuts. It was.
Okay.
I don't know if it was just a local thing. Maybe it was just a local Rhode Island thing. Maybe Fantastic Sam's was a regional thing. Maybe it was the Honeydew Donuts of the haircut wars. But
founded in Memphis, Tennessee, but its headquarters were in Woburn. So there you go.
Okay, sure. Fantastic Sam's. Place for terrible. It's a chain haircut store that gave you terrible cuts, but it was like $8. So
once again, for everybody in Central Mass, I can't recommend Lamboy's Barbershop enough.
Hey. If I don't get paid to say it, then it doesn't get on the podcast.
You pressed record. It's on the record.
Damn
Nothing
it.
you can do about it now.
All right. Well, I can hit this button to get you off the show. So bye, Tom.
Bye, Gabber.
Yeah. All right. Welcome to the end of July. These are the types of things that we're talking about. This show is daily, but in August, which we are 10 days away, 11 days away, we will be going to 3 days a week unless situation warrants that we go more than 3 days a week. But through the dead period of the NBA, we will scale back ever so slightly, a 3-day-a-week schedule. But for now, it's a Monday through Friday podcast. So subscribe. You can get this podcast delivered directly to your device. You can watch the show on YouTube and subscribe there. If you do subscribe on YouTube and watch the show, I really hope that you like and comment and hit the thumbs up button, all that stuff, and share the podcast. That'd be great. Tell your friends, tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.